My name is Neil Kubitz, resident of Seattle. Belltown family, how are you? I am a market brat, but I'm also a Belltown junkie. My motives here today are very deeply personal, but altruistic as well. The next half hour, you'll hear many people that are much better than me explain to you why the Wayne Apartments embody the specific local and national criteria of a historical landmark. I would like to touch on criterion C. Are the Wayne Apartments associated with a significant aspect of the cultural, political, or economic heritage of the community? If you sift through the history of the building, which survived the Denny regrade, and the annexation of Ballard and what's now West Seattle, you'll find that it's always housed fringe members of society, not bankers, doctors, lawyers, architects, or any other seemingly lofty occupation, but rather individuals who prefer to operate in the shadows, the unseen cogs of the wheel on which our city churns, the people whose jobs you've never had to think about because of the conveniences they offer. Essentially, Belltown residents have always worn the bluest of collars, and that is pretty goddamn significant. Thank you.
My name is Miranda Stoley, and I'm focusing on criteria F, an easily identifiable visual feature of its neighborhood and now the city contributing to the distinctive quality and identity of Belltown by a connection to the Denny regrade, as it is one of the last remaining examples of the regrade hybrid architectural style and beautifully visible as shown in your photos from the street. It is also one of the last examples of work built by Louis Rill, pioneer of Belltown, investor of the unwanted, and it is the heart and core of Belltown in its cultural, historical integrity and image. And it's agreed upon by the council members who joined me on a walkthrough of that building, and they also submitted some necessary statements.
Hi, my name is Steve Hall, and let's talk about integrity. And I want to talk about the essential physical features of this building. And they really jump out at you. You even look at the 1911 plan, and it's these three gabled windows that are at the top of the building. You go to the 1937 assessment, and if you were asked anyone to say, what jumps out at you? The three gabled windows. And to this day, we have this iconic image of this building. Its identity are these three gabled windows. So I believe the integrity is not about the street level. It's not about the siding. It's not about the shingles or the shutters. It's about these beautiful windows. These windows that we look at today with renewed interest in its history are the same windows that were looked at by the dirt streets in early Belltown, and I hope they're the same windows that will be looked at in future generations with the landmark status. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liz Campbell. I am the immediate past president of Belltown Community Council. I am the interim chair of Belltown Housing and Land Use Subcommittee, and I believe that you received our written support for this community-led restoration project in the mail today. By consensus, the Blues has formally submitted our support for these efforts. We feel that this structure does meet the threshold of connection to the culture of the current neighborhood, and in fact we are interested in exploring mechanisms and overlays to go from the 2300 block to the north of Film Row through Music Row all the way down to the Moore Theater. And we see this building in context of the neighborhood, and we do think that it meets that threshold. Secondly, I am a community organizer, and I've been invited in by this wonderful community to work with them. And I wanted to let everyone know I did due diligence. Councilmember Badshaw has in fact toured the building. Council members were briefed before this meeting. Thank you.
I'm Allison Ray, and my comments are pertinent to criteria F. I feel the Wayne Apartments currently stands out in Belltown, in the Belltown neighborhood, as a long-lived in and very well-loved structure, as quirky as the block it stands on. While it's clearly a bit worn in 2015, it brings so many long-time local residents some comfort amidst rapid redevelopment of our neighborhood, while providing a uniquely Belltown atmosphere to newcomers and visitors alike. If designated, this community is entirely on board to assist in any and all efforts to restore the Wayne to its past glory.
Okay, the next group is Sean Harrigan, Robert Stills, Steve Hall, Chuck Little, and Bob Farah. On again.
First. You can scratch Steve Hall, I already went up.
My name is Robert Thompson. The Wayne Apartments are the last of its kind in Belltown, let alone the city. The closest residential building from that era is 4.5 blocks away, making the Wayne Apartments very rare, not just in Belltown, but in the entire city of Seattle. We need to preserve buildings like this before they become non-existent. This building is well over 100 years old, and any wear and tear on this building is expected for a building of its age and rarity. The architectural features that make this building special and unique are still well intact. It still holds the integrity to convey its significance. Because of these facts, I urge the board to approve this nomination for landmark status of the Wayne Apartments. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chuck Little. This has to, in regards to the Denny regrade and the proximity to Denny Hill. We literally moved a mountain back in the day. Flash forward 100 plus years, and we can't even go to town. Thanks.
Okay, the next group is Josh Sharp, Matt Herron, John Briner, Josh Berman, and James Todd.
Hello, Josh Sharp.
Josh.
My name is Josh Sharp. Appreciate the time. It took 4 years for the city to finally officially create something to honor Jimmy Hendrix. It took just months for a street to be named after a retired but living sports player. That says much about the Seattle leaders and officials' need to wake up to the fact that the arts are one of the most important aspects of Seattle's legacy and history, and they should be honored. When Nirvana released Nevermind in the early 90s, it changed the world. Pearl Jam put out 10 that same year. Seattle began to look a lot less like a small town. No one had any idea how profound the wake Nirvana and other grunge musicians would leave and how they would dramatically change the face of music. Nirvana, along with program, grunge, and expensive coffee, turned Seattle into a raging cultural experience that mesmerized the world, shaping music, fashion, movies, and magazine covers. Grunge's imprint on Seattle is hard to see. The city has spawned them, no official memories to its fallen sons, no park or streets named in the honor, only a worn bench as a tribute. The city's only recent nod to Kurt Cobain's death was the release of photos of the suicide. If they were never, Seattle really impacted American lifestyle in the 90s, and this building was at the center point of all of this change. I'm sorry, I had it much longer, but the minute was almost finished.
I just wanted to come up here and voice my opposition. Matt Herron. I'm sure I'm not going to be very popular, but I wanted to be one of the few people to maybe get up here and voice my opposition to this nomination. I think there's obviously deep community support for the businesses and the people that live in the current building, but just because something is well loved doesn't mean it is worthy of nomination as a historic structure. I think the integrity of the building has been far outstripped. There was a building at 2nd and Stewart that was recently nominated that didn't receive designation, and in my opinion is much more prominent of an example, and that's being torn down to build a 40-story skyscraper. So I think while it's interesting that this building was put on top of an old building, it was clearly done for economic reasons, and nobody even knows who the original architect of the original structure was.
Hi, my name's John Briner. I'm a developer, landowner, building owner in Belltown. I built a building at the corner of 2nd and Bell, a block away from this. And as a Belltown guy, I do love this neighborhood. But in the case of this building, we watched upstairs of that building from our building as we developed it, and we know the building's in pretty bad shape. And as far as the character of the building, I just don't see where the historic side of the building comes into play. And I guess for me, the way I see this is, I'd be careful as a member of the historic review side of every building in Belltown that was moved, or every building in the city that was moved to suddenly become a historic building. And so I'd hate to see that precedent take place. And so when I look at this building, I compare it to the other historic buildings in town, and a lot of them keep the original character. This building's, been, scabbed together for years. Doesn't mean I don't love the businesses and everything there, but I don't think it should be nominated. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Josh Berman. I'm the owner of PDA Lounge, part of this building. I wasn't planning on speaking today, so I didn't prepare anything, but I will say this. Owning this business for quite a few years, I've seen thousands upon thousands of tourists walk down 2nd Ave and experience firsthand what Seattle is supposed to be, and it would be a shame for Belltown to turn into Capitol Hill, and I don't mean that in a good way. Capitol Hill's culture is being destroyed. If Belltown's culture is destroyed too, I don't know where people are going to look next. And as a music lover and as someone that's born and raised in Seattle, Washington, for us to lose these huge chunks of our culture every time someone with a big pocketbook shows up would certainly be a shame, and isn't reflective of the city I grew up in. Thank you.
Hello, my name is James Todd, Criteria C. For over 100 years, the Wayne Apartments have overlooked the 200 block of Belltown. Its walls have given shelter to the backbone of Seattle's history, the working class. Those who dreamed for a better future for their families and for a better future for the city itself. To destroy the Wayne would not only be a loss of a link to Seattle's past, but also be turning our backs on those who built it. Seattle is quickly becoming a world-class city, and to really achieve this, we have to look to London, Paris, and New York, and realize that they've embraced their past and their future, and the way to enhance it. The Wayne reminds me of the fight of the classic film Frank Capra's On Borrowed Time. Excuse me, You Can't Take It With You. The story of a neighborhood fighting the development. I will compare our cast to more of a John Waters film or a David Lynch film than a Frank Capra film, but it's the same fight to save our history and preserve our honor. Thank you.
Okay, the next group is Tiffany Jorgensen, Persephone, okay, thank you. Rebecca Priggett, Carrie McFarland, and Kim Spice.
So this is Mr. Bell. I found this at the Fried Arts. It was in a history book.
Sorry, could you speak to me?
This is Mr. Rowe. Oh, so basically, I had this lovely speech written all about the history that he had played in Seattle. But this lovely group covered that nicely. What isn't covered is that in that area that he purchased, the 5 acres in Belltown, it was actually known as the Roadblock. He had 6 store rentals and 15 flats on Union. He did have that land in Port Orchard, which was adjacent to the Naval Shipyard. Also, he had a gold mine, which was when they reduced the Colville reservation in 1892. He purchased it in 1893, and it was estimated that he made over $700,000, which is a vast amount of money for that time. You know, he didn't live in that building as long as he lived in other places. I found him living in 1906 and 5514 15th Avenue until he passed away in 1917. But he was also found in so many history books. He was found in a history of the Puget Sound County, its resources, commerce, and its people. And he was also a member of the Pioneer Association, acting as treasurer and trustee for over 10 years. He was important.
Could you please speak to me?
Thank you.
I am Persephone Shishak. It is not known the exact date. It is not known the exact date that the Wayne Apartments were built, but it is estimated somewhere between 1888 and 1893. Has anyone noticed they're made of wood? On June 6, 1889, the Great Fire of Seattle destroyed downtown and swept through 2nd Avenue around 4 p.m. After the Great Fire, a new law was enacted. All buildings had to be made of steel, stone, or steel. This indicates it could have survived the fire that changed early Seattle. If
historic research on a near daily basis during my work week. I would like to voice my support for the Wayne Apartments historic designation on the grounds that they fulfill standards A and C of the formal standards for designation. The Denny regrade not only changed the geography of Seattle, it irrevocably changed the architectural history of Seattle. Many buildings that would easily be deemed historic today were raised, and only through photographs can we see their physical impact on downtown Seattle. Though the Wayne Apartments may no longer be completely intact, I will give you that. Preserving them would provide the citizens of Seattle, young and old, rich and poor, white collar and blue collar, with the chance for a vibrant look at pre-regrade hybrid architecture still being used for its original purpose. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Spice, and I've lived in Belltown. I don't currently, but I have before, but I recently opened a small business there in March, just a block from the Wayne Apartments. And I'd like to speak to criteria F, that the Wayne Apartments contribute to this distinctive quality and identity of the neighborhood. The historic gable structure sets this block apart from a lot of the rest of the neighborhood that has all of the new development, and that's specifically the reason why I chose Belltown to open my small business. I didn't want to be in a cookie cutter place without any personality or character. So I urge you to preserve this, and I know that it was stated that you couldn't take into account things that were against development or only pertain to criteria F. But just to let you know, I'm not going to go and start a business in a neighborhood that is just all full of condos. We need to preserve these character-filled spaces for small family-owned businesses. Thank you.
The next group, Mark Taylor Canfield, Jennifer Mortensen, Patrick Worth, Steve Yoon, and Graham Pine.
My name is Mark Taylor Canfield. I'm a journalist living in Seattle. I've been writing about issues of gentrification and historic preservation for several national and international news media networks, and also at my column at the Capitol Hill Times and at Daily Coast. So first of all, with all due respect, I have to say that the statement by the attorney that the city council members who are supporting this preservation did not read the proposal is unsubstantiated and would not stand up in court. Second of all, in terms of the Wayne Apartments building and its qualifications for historic preservation under the prescribed designation criteria, it's clear that the building is historically and architecturally unique due to the fact that it was built before the Denny regrade, and most buildings from that era have disappeared. Let me tell you that Seattle is gaining a reputation very quickly of being a city with high rents, overdevelopment, and does not adequately protect its historic buildings. In addition, the local businesses at that site have definitely contributed to the significant aspect of Seattle's unique culture, as the colorful clown invasion of Shorties and the other clubs the other day clearly demonstrates. I urge the board to approve the Wayne Apartments historic preservation status and help preserve the heart of this city that we all love. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Mortensen. I work as the Preservation Services Coordinator for the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, the Washington statewide advocacy organization for historic and cultural resources. I submitted a letter of support, which I hope you all had a chance to review, and I just wanted to reiterate that the Washington Trust sees this building as significantly connected to the Denny regrade, and that while some integrity has been lost, the building does retain its ability to demonstrate significance for criteria C and D, as I outlined in my letter. So the Washington Trust supports the designation of this building. Thank you.
My name is Patrick Worth, and I actually did live in that building for a little while. It's really difficult for artists and stuff to find affordable living down in the historical sort of district of that. Definitely want to also bring to attention to F, because the building does, just sort of draw in the quality and the identity of the neighborhood. And, I came to this city from the East Coast because I wanted to get involved with all art culture and just the sort of scene where a lot of creative folks sort of gather. And more I'm seeing these kind of places disappear, and it would be tragic that this would be another victim of development. So just wanted to show my support too.
Hi, my name is Graham Clem. I'm a Seattle resident over the last 10 years. I also want to mention that I am a fierce urbanist, and I'm a heavy proponent of densification. I am here to support the landmark preservation of the Wayne Apartments. And I think it came up that there was a previous board member that wrote in saying that you can't go against precedent that was set in the past, and likened, they brought up the 1200 Pike Street location, which has come up a few times since then. I believe that was a 4-4 vote, something to keep in mind. And I think we've discussed numerous distinctions, most importantly, most crucially, the iconic and maybe standalone context within the history of the Denny Regrade. That's what I'll leave it at. Thank you for your time over the last 3.5 hours and the patience of everybody here for the last 3.5 hours.
Okay, Keith Wolf, Amy Penny, Kelly Smith, and Eugenia Wu, Evan Clifton, and Bill Ball.
Hello, my name is Keith Wolf, and I'm going to make it really quick. I'd say about 15 years ago, I came to this neighborhood. I'm a performer. I've traveled all around the country doing shows for tourists. And something that I always look for in a community is a place where I feel safe. I also feel a sense of culture. And I just want to say that I'd like you guys to preserve this block, this place, all of it, because it's very hard for performers and other artists to find spots that still support us, and I don't want to do mall gigs.
Hello, my name is Amy Penny, and I'm going to apologize because my voice will be shaky. I'm a longtime resident of Seattle, and I lived in this building for a very, very long time. According to the SMC codes C and D that are going to basically validate this building being a structure that should be historically recognized, it's quite obvious that for the 120 years this has been around, no one cared. And it's quite obvious that someone should care now. We are rapidly losing places in our city that even look like what our city used to look like. And I think that should be something that should be recognized. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Eugenia Wu from Historic Seattle, and we supported the nomination of the Wayne Apartments last month, and we're here today to support the designation under criterion C and D. Regarding integrity, yes, we all know the building's changed quite a bit, but the property still is able to convey significance. And about 10 years ago, the board designated the Japanese language school, and it had vinyl siding and aluminum windows, but it clearly still conveyed a significance, and we're really glad that you did that. And also the Belltown cottages. I'm hoping that 20 years from now, people will say thank you to this board to have the forethought to designate the Wayne Apartments. There's a book that came out about the history of how Seattle's topography was shaped, called Too High and Too Steep. I don't know, I think it came out after the nomination was submitted. It just came out. But it's a fascinating read, and it really puts in context what the Wayne Apartment means and the significance specifically related to designation standard C. And I talked to the author, and he confirmed that the Wayne Apartments is the only known extant building from pre-regrade. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill Bullock. I wish to speak to the idea that the city is going to change. It is going to grow, it is going to develop. And part of what brought all of the development to this city is that we have a culture. We have a culture that was created by people without a whole lot of money, that are weird, that live in weird places, that go to weird places. And when you take away those places that those people congregate and make art and drink and can afford to live, that will dissipate. That will go somewhere else. And this place will no longer be a magnet for that. Now, CNF may not be the strongest case on this, but please, when you look at this place, know that this is what brings in something more than just money to this city, and it's worth keeping that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Evan Clifthorne. I'm here on behalf of Seattle City Councilmember Tom Rasmussen to speak to the letter that you all received. Thank you. I would just ask that you not allow the motives and qualifications of 4 council members who are employed by the entire city of Seattle to be misconstrued and impugned by a single attorney who is employed by 1 member among 600,000 who live in the city. These are council members who have served this city for a very long time and are very well versed in this subject and wrote that letter to you with great forethought and with great input. So I hope you'll take that seriously, and I thank you for your time, your dedication, and your patience.
Hello, my name is Lillian Grimany Williams, and I am originally from San Francisco, California, and I have recently become a proud homeowner in Belltown, just blocks away from the Wayne apartment. I watched San Francisco become completely sterile and have no character. Castro is no longer a gay mecca. The mission is filled with yuppies, and it breaks my heart. It's too late for San Francisco. It is not too late for Seattle.
Thank you. So, and also thank you for your rigor in responding efforts. So thank you for your comments and for really addressing the criteria, the destination standards that we have discussed now. I'll note that Julianne has recused herself, so we're 1 member less right now. And I think board deliberation will start with you, Matt. We'll just work our way down the line. Sorry.
Okay, and sorry to take a little bit more time than usual because this is obviously a weighty designation in front of us, and a lot's been said. We've received so many comments, which are always helpful to help you fill in a better opinion of the place. I've walked that block a couple times during the last couple weeks so I can get a better feel of how it fits in with Belltown, and so I can better understand F. I've been in Seattle a long time, and I have some sense of the neighborhood, but it's always good to get input from the people who live there and work there. So a couple of starting points, and I just wanted to make it clear that when we consider this building, we're not considering what's happening in Belltown generally, really, or other businesses on this street, or what's going to happen to this building after this. We're about sitting here and judging this building on its own merits and whether it meets the criteria that are laid out in the Seattle Municipal Code. So that's our starting point. Also, to make sure that people understand that the building's condition does not equate to its historical integrity. There are issues of integrity and its ability to convey its significance that, you know, if you can imagine the World Heritage Site, there's ruins all over the place that are in terrible shape but are still considered World Heritage Sites. So please don't try to make an equation between condition and integrity, which can also vary to some degree with the type of criterion that you're evaluating the building under. So if I'm thinking about this building under C and D, which I am, there can be building activity that lets you understand its historical significance better than if you're trying to understand it as an architectural exemplary of a certain style. And then that way, architectural features become a little bit more important than if you're trying to consider it for its relationship to historical events in the city. It's also very common in our landmark process to consider the additions separately. We do this all the time for schools and other properties. And I know David said something about considering this as one building, but we consider additions separately in the designation process all the time. And I'm going to do that in my remarks as well, between the 1910, 1911 work and the 1890 building, estimated 1890. So for me, I would support the designation under C, D, and F. I think when I consider what this building represents, it represents something quite unique in Seattle's history. The early development in Belltown specifically, first moving from the single-family residences that David described to something with a little bit more higher density. And second, from residential to commercial and mixed use, the regrade, completely reset Belltown development. And it's one of the few buildings, as we've heard, that can represent that pre-Denny or that pre-regrade period. And I know there's been some talk about other buildings in the area, but if you look at, and I'll try to sum this up, about its unique character, it represents as few can what pre-Belltown looked before the regrade. And I believe that there's really nothing like it in Seattle in the way that it can represent this 19th century row house, Queen Anne style, pre-regrade, and this hybrid form. So if you take all those together, to me, that represents something fairly historically significant. It also shows this